to some other aspects that are happening here in Nairobi, and that is the Cybersecurity Summit. And we now want to bring in Jeremy Kai, who is the head of Checkpoint, and he's joining us from our City Center studios. Good afternoon, Jeremy. Can you hear me from our town studios?
Hi, I can. Good afternoon, Abby. Thank you for having me on your show.
Of course, very interesting times for African countries trying to cope with not only debt, but increasing threats that are related to cybersecurity. What is the state of affairs for the continent right now?
Well, I think we're seeing cybersecurity becoming a major issue for countries all over the world. When we look at specifically within Africa, and if I zone into specifically Kenya, where we've been taking part in a cybersecurity conference today, I think there are a lot of challenges for businesses in particular. We've seen that whereas traditionally around the world you have a blend of employees bringing in their personal devices with companies providing cell phones to their employees, whereas here it seems to be certainly the majority of the case that employees are bringing in their own phones. And companies are encouraging that practice, which fundamentally isn't bad. But what we've seen is that these phones do not have any layer of security or protection at all. And the situation that we're creating right here is that businesses are allowing their employees to connect to corporate applications, to corporate data, providing them access to corporate email, and there's no security. So of course, if their personal mobile device has been compromised, if they've downloaded something, if there's some malware on the phone, it means that the company is now left exposed. And that's certainly a challenge that all Kenyan businesses cannot afford to ignore.
And Jeremy, very interesting points you've raised there. What are some of the main targets for the cyber hackers, if I may say so?
I think cyber hackers will go after high-value targets. So they're going to go after industries that are rich in data, where their data is very valuable. So the banking industry, financial services, of course, extremely valuable. Any kind of application where there are electronic payments being made. So if we go back to banking, any banking application, payment apps, you go to the airways, any kind of shopping application where we're making countless transactions. If you think about healthcare with electronic medical records is very high value for hackers. Anywhere where we've got things that can be traded on the black market or can be used within some kind of phishing program is very, very valuable to them. So I think they're key industries, but the reality is that no industry is immune. We've got lots of customers all over the world in government, in the police force, in social services, in education. We're seeing a rise of schools delivering devices to their students, and they want to make sure that those devices are protected.
Right. And finally, Jeremy, looking at the big picture, what are some of the proactive approaches that organizations can take to mitigate in relation to this cyber threats?
Okay, I mean, I think it's very, very obvious that mobile is with us to stay, and it should be. I think it's a major driver of productivity in the workplace. So we need to embrace mobility. We need to find ways to do that securely. So one of the ways that we do is that we deploy an application on the end user's device, and anything that the end user does, we're able to secure. So we don't want to interfere with the end user's utilization of technology. Let people download applications as much as they want. That's absolutely fine. But if they're downloading a malicious application, then we want to create visibility for the employer. And now the employee can have that ability to decide, do I want that device to connect to my corporate applications or not? Do I want to provide a device that's got malware on it? Do I now want to give that access to mobile phones? And as I spoke with a bank today, they said to me their number one problem is a lack of visibility. So I think providing an instance of for example, our Samblos mobile technology on employees' phones will give the employers that ability to understand what is going on, which devices are fine, which devices are not fine, and to make good business decisions.
Perfect place to end the conversation. Many thanks there, Jeremy Kai, just giving some context to this cybersecurity summit that was happening here in Nairobi, and of course raising pertinent questions on how organizations need to re-strategize, especially in having a proactive approach in relation to addressing cyber threats. Well, let's